Warning, this video contains explicit gore and violence. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned.
Gasping for breath, Howard King emerged from the jungle and walked out onto the plain. At last, he could see where he was. He paused, soaked and muddy, to get his bearings. He was disappointed to find that he was nowhere near the boat. In fact, he still seemed to be on the wrong side of the road. He was facing a broad, grassy plain, with a river coursing through it. The plain was mostly deserted, although there were several dinosaurs farther down the banks. They were the horned ones, Triceratops, and they looked a little agitated. The big adults were raising their heads up and down and making barking sounds. Obviously, he would have to follow the river until it brought him to the boat, but he would have to be careful getting past these Triceratops. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a candy bar. He ripped the wrapping while he watched the Triceratops, wishing they would go away. How long would it take him to reach the boat? That was the only question on his mind. He decided to move, Triceratops or not. He began walking through the tall grass. Then he heard a reptilian hiss. It was coming from the grass, somewhere off to his left. And he noticed a smell, a peculiar rotten smell. He paused, waiting. The candy bar didn't taste so good anymore. Then behind him, he heard splashing. It was coming from the river. King turned to look. "Hey, I see one of the men from the Jeep," Arby said, standing up in the high hide. But why is he waiting? From their vantage point, they could see the dark shapes of the Raptors moving through the grass on the other side of the river. Now 2 of the Raptors came forward, splashing in the water, moving toward the man on the field. "Oh no," Arby said. Out on the field, King saw 2 dark striped lizards moving across the river. They walked on their hind legs with a sort of hopping motion. Their bodies were reflected in the flowing of the river. They snapped their long jaws and hissed menacingly at King. He glanced upstream and saw another lizard crossing the river, and another beyond that. Those other animals were already deep in the water and had begun to swim. Howard King backed away from the river, moving deeper into the tall grass. Then he turned and ran. He was chest deep in grass and running, hard, gasping for breath, when suddenly another lizard rose up in front of him, hissing and snarling. He dodged, changed direction, but suddenly the nearest lizard leapt in the air. It jumped so high its whole body cleared the grass. Its legs were raised up to pounce. He saw curved, dagger-like claws. King turned again, and the lizard shrieked as it landed on the ground behind him and tumbled away into the grass. King ran on. He was energized by pure fear. Behind him, he heard the lizard snarling. He ran hard. Ahead was another 20 yards of grassy clearing, and then the jungle began again. He saw trees. Big trees. He could climb one and get away. Off to the left, he saw another lizard moving diagonally across the field toward him. King could only see the head above the grass. The lizard seemed to be moving incredibly fast. He thought, "I'm not going to make it." But he would try. Panting, lungs searing, he sprinted for the trees. Only 10 more yards now. His arms pumped, his legs churned, his breath came in ragged gasps. And then something heavy struck him from behind, forcing him to the ground. And he felt searing pain down his back. And he knew it was the claws. They dug into the flesh of his back. And he was knocked down. He hit the dirt hard and tried to roll, but the animal on his back held on. He could not move. He was pinned down on his stomach, hearing the animal snarl behind him. The pain on his back was excruciating, dizzying. And then he felt the animal's hot breath on the back of his neck. And he heard the snorting breath, and his terror was extreme. Then suddenly, a kind of lassitude, a deep and welcome sleepiness took him. Everything became slow, as if in a dream. He could see all the blades of the grass in front of him. He saw them with a kind of languid intensity, and he almost did not mind the sharp pain on his neck, and he almost did not care that his neck was within the animal's hot jaws. It seemed to be happening to someone else. He was many miles away. He had a moment of surprise when he felt the bones of his neck crunching loudly, and then blackness. Nothing. "Don't look," Dr. Thorne said, turning Arby away from the railing of the high-hide. He drew the boy toward his chest, but Arby impatiently pushed away again to watch what was happening out on the field. Thorne reached for Kelly, but she stepped away from him too. and stared out at the plane. "Don't look," Thorne kept saying. "Don't look." The kids watched in silence. Dr. Levine focused his binoculars on the kill. There were now 5 raptors snarling around the dead man's body, tearing viciously at the carcass. As he watched, one of the raptors jerked its head up, tearing away a piece of blood-soaked shirt, the ragged edge of the collar. Another was shaking the man's severed head in its jaws, before finally dropping it on the ground. Thunder rumbled and lightning flashed in the distant sky. It was growing dark, and Levine was having difficulty seeing exactly what was happening. Here, it was every animal for itself. The frenzied raptors hopped and ducked their heads as they tore the body to pieces, and there was plenty of nipping and fighting among themselves. One animal came up with something brown hanging from its jaws. The animal got an odd expression on its face as it chewed. Then it turned away from the rest of the pack, and it held the brown object carefully in its forearms. In the growing darkness, it took Levine a moment to recognize what it was doing. It was eating a candy bar, and it seemed to be enjoying it. The raptor turned back and buried its long nose into the bloody carcass again. From across the plain, other raptors were racing to join the feast. Half running, half bounding in great forward leaps, snarling and furious, they threw themselves into the fray. Levine lowered his glasses and looked at the 2 kids. They were staring silently and calmly at the kill. That was just a short reading of the original Jurassic Park books by Michael Crichton. The books are way scarier than the movies, and if you want to see more of these creepy Jurassic Park stories, then go ahead and leave a like down below. If this gets 10 likes, then I'll do more, and I'll traumatize you even more. So go ahead and click the like button if you want to be traumatized again. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe if you want to see more of me. Bye-bye.